All right. We are live. I don't know what's going on. Y'all give me just one moment. Okay. Yes, we are officially live on Facebook. So let's get started. So I know we were working on introducing ourselves to each other. But kind of, if you guys are logging into the live stream, kind of what this is we're discussing careers in STEM. And so these lovely individuals work in a variety of fields. And I thought that would be good background for you to kind of get an idea of what, different majors can do and kind of you guys hear about these majors or you're in these majors, but you aren't quite sure what that looks like in the real world or what that looks like after NCTC. So we've got some engineers, we've got two different people who do cancer research, but they actually have different academic backgrounds. Some of our engineers have different academic backgrounds. And then a dear friend of mine who I went to undergrad with, he has an interesting story as well. Sometimes our pathways in STEM aren't linear. So I think that's going to be really cool. I hope you guys enjoy. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to allow each panelist to introduce themselves, kind of your name, job title, or company or school that you were working at. So we'll just go in order. So Chelsea, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Chelsea. I am currently working on getting my PhD in molecular biology at Texas Women's University. I am a TWU alum, so for my undergrad, I got my major in biology and I got my minor in chemistry. And with the program that I signed up for in grad school, it's a master's PhD combined program. So within the first 2 years, I will be awarded my master's, and then all those credits get directly transferred into my PhD. And on top of it, I am an international student. So I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa. So on top of the stress of being a woman in a biology field, I have to deal with the stress of being international on top of it. And I am working on multi-drug resistance for chemotherapy, and we're actually working on developing a new chemo drug that we're hoping to take into clinical trials within the next 2 years.
Awesome. All right, so Dr. Falkenberry, I will let you go next.
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Super. Hey, Leanne, great to see you, and thank you for the invitation tonight. Hi, everyone that I don't know. My name's Tom Falkenberry. I am an associate professor and department head for the Department of Psychological Sciences at Tarleton State University. I'm a mathematical psychologist, so I have 2 degrees in math and 1 and a PhD in psychology, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's who I am, so good to see everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Dean?
All right, yes. So Dean Fleitman, I'm a staff mechanical engineer at Burns McDonnell. I've been here for 4 years. I will be getting my professional engineering license here in just about 2 months. And then I also went to NCTC for my first 2 years where I got my associates. And then from there, I went to Texas Tech and got my undergrad in mechanical engineering. So glad to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Hey, Chuck?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. My title is an Institute Research Investigator at MD Anderson Cancer Center. I just started working here just under a year ago, but I also got my associates at NCTC from 2011 to 2013. And then after that, I went to the University of Central Arkansas. I majored in biology and chemistry. And then from there, I went to Texas A&M and did a PhD in chemistry. And then that landed me at MD Anderson after that.
Nice. Hey, Aaron? Her screen is frozen. Erin, are you still there? Erin, are you with us? You want to introduce yourself? Okay. Logan, I'll go ahead and let you go.
All right, cool. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Logan. I graduated from the University of Texas just this past May with a bachelor's in computer science. Now I'm working with the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, mainly working on protecting our critical infrastructure. That means, oil and gas, infrastructure, electrical, sewage, all of that sort of stuff. Doing that through software engineering and cybersecurity work.
Awesome. All right. I think we lost Kenzie. Erin, are you able to hear us? And I think we also lost Kenzie for a moment, so we'll get back to Erin and Kenzie here in a little bit. Now, you guys mentioned a little bit about your educational background, but we're going to dive in a little deeper and talk about what was your educational journey to get to where you are now. I know for some of you it's pretty straightforward, and for others, you guys have kind of really been through the ringer to get to where you are now. So, Chelsea, do you have any?
Sure. I would say my career path was pretty linear. My original path was I wanted to go to med school. However, my immigration status kind of became a little tricky with that. And I found that pursuing a PhD was easier as they're a little more accepting of international students. And so I started talking to some faculty that did research on campus. And that's when I found the cancer research lab, because I was choosing between doing Alzheimer's research and cancer research, and just like reading about like the papers that they wrote that really interested me. But yeah, it was a fairly linear path.
It's awesome. But I mean, that happens a lot. You start with one major and you're like, okay, let's try to find something that works.
Yes.
Tom, I know you kind of went through a similar process of landing where you are at now. If you want to talk about that more.
Yeah, so I would say that my path was highly nonlinear, and that's okay, because I, at one point in my life, did study nonlinear dynamical systems. I just didn't think that I would ever apply them to finding a job. So I started out, as Leanne mentioned, we went to undergrad together at Southeastern Oklahoma State, and I was going to be a mathematician. I mean, it didn't take me long to figure out that I enjoyed doing research. I enjoyed doing research in pure mathematics. That was my thing. I got into low dimensional topology while I was an undergraduate, went to Oklahoma State University because of a really good faculty who studied low dimensional topology. And that was my career path. I was going to be a faculty member and do research in geometric topology and those kinds of things. And then I got married, and that was a cool thing. And that was almost 20 years ago at this point. Something happened after I got married, though. That is, my wife finished her PhD. And what that led us to was a crossroads. We either stay in Stillwater and she finds a job that's probably not desirable now that she has a PhD, while I finish up, and I'm running about 4 years behind her at this point. Or we jump ship and move to Texas, where she can begin her academic career and I can just transfer school. So that's exactly what we did. And we left Stillwater, and I thought very naively, ooh, I can just go to a different school. So I went to Denton, went to the University of North Texas, was a mean green for 2 years. Took me 2 years to figure out that I didn't like doing the kinds of pure mathematics that they did. And that was unfortunate, but it got me involved in a project in math education that was really cool. And I realized, oh, maybe this is what I want to do. So for a semester or two, I took some education courses, and I said, no, I never want to take those again. But then I took another course that led me down the path of cognitive psychology. And I realized that the stuff that I wanted to study, I needed to know how the mind works, not how we teach, not that, but just literally the science of how the mind and brain work, particularly in the fields of mathematics. And so that's what I did. I went and got a PhD in psychology, and then eventually ended up where I am right now. But I don't really do that kind of work anymore. I use pure mathematics to study the mind and human behavior. So that's what makes me a mathematical psychologist. Very, very nonlinear path to get there.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah. Sometimes your path is linear, and then a lot of us, our paths are non-linear, and that is okay. Or circular sometimes. All right.
Oh, Leanne, I think you went on mute for a second there.
Oh, goodness. I unmuted it and then it went back on mute. So, Aaron, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of talk about your educational path?
Sure. So I'm Erin Curtis. I work for Lockheed Martin. My degree is in math with a minor in physics. And I was a pure math major. As my husband is fond of saying, that means I don't know how to do anything. He's an astro engineer. I tell him, I know how to do all the things. Your stuff is just word problems to me. Never in a million years did I think I would wind up working for a defense contractor. When I started college, I actually thought I was going to teach high school math. After college, I wound up working for an actuarial sciences consulting company doing human resources consulting stuff with actuarial sciences, and then eventually wound up at Lockheed. I'm on my fourth job, I think, at Lockheed in the 20 plus years I've been there. I predominantly work exportability and policy stuff now. I'm a systems engineer, so systems of systems, which is really just complex problem solving that we learn to do in STEM. I want to get from point A to point B. How do I get there? What are all the critical enablers? How can I minimize the time to get there? And I'm truly blessed to have a job that I really, really love. Every day is a little bit different. I learn new things all the time, and I work with really, really cool technology and really smart people. So it's been a good journey for me, but definitely a non-linear path.
That's amazing. Yeah. So, for those of you guys who don't know, I have a similar background to Aaron. My bachelor's degree is in math with a minor in physics, and oddly, a minor in theater. But that's a different story for another day. Um, but I also tried to do grad school after being out of school for a while and quickly discovered that a graduate degree in math is not quite the path I want to go. Um, so that's why you guys see me here today is I work in advising and I kind of head up all of our STEM programs here at NCTC, which I'm sure Chuck can attest to. When he was here 2011, 2012, at that time we didn't advise by majors or anything like that. So it's been a really long pathway of changing our advising model, having even pathways to help lead you guys down the right majors and things like that, and having STEM club and being able to put on these events. So, because I've also been here since 2011, so it's one of those things where you start out a degree or get your degree in something with a job in mind, but that may not always be where you land. But that doesn't mean you can't still have an impact within your field. And so I think that's really cool. All right, Dean, I'm going to let you go.
All right. So I had a fairly straightforward path. I guess, fun fact, I had the chance to begin my academic and athletic career at NCTC, to where I was the pitcher and Chuck Deckard on our call was my catcher at NCTC. So just a fun fact for everyone there. So began my academic career where I got my associates at NCTC. Started engineering actually when I transferred to Texas A&M University at Kingsville. and that's where I started mechanical engineering, and I finished getting my undergrad at Texas Tech there. So ended up being a little bit longer of a road than usual. I like to joke and say I took a victory lap of college and then a cool down lap because of all the baseball I played, but I really enjoyed it. Don't regret a thing. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. All right, Chuck.
Yeah, only fitting a follow up, Dean, after that. Yeah, no, I always was interested in science. And starting back to high school, I think originally I was more interested in the biology side of things, and went to college thinking maybe I would try to be some sort of MD. But as I took classes, I kind of gradually shifted more towards being interested in the molecular aspect of science, and so deviated from the biology a little more into the biochemistry and chemistry. And then that led me to the PhD in chemistry. But after finishing all of that, I felt like you never see the whole picture, but I felt like I saw enough of it to kind of see the connection between the two, the biology and the chemistry. And then wanting to do something more applied, I ended up coming to MD Anderson, where I kind of got to take some of the molecular technical stuff from chemistry, but still apply it to biology. So I really enjoy it, and that's sort of my path.
Sorry, I lost my page. Awesome. So, Logan?
Yeah, so kind of like Chuck, I was also into the sciences as a kid, insofar as I was a huge video game nerd, and that progressed into me being real interested into computers, and I went into UT as a computer science major in August of 2017. I was originally planning on being a software engineer, but the scholarship basically fell into my lap, and it was a cybersecurity oriented scholarship. And I originally wasn't very interested in it, but they were like, "Hey, we'll give you a full ride." So I was like, "Okay, sounds good." And so that's how I started my cybersecurity career. And the more I got into it, the more I liked it. So I started doing. I joined a hacking club actually, and we competed in some collegiate tournaments. There's a service called Hack the Box where they kind of set up a network or a computer for you to hack into. I did that a good bit. Yeah, and then that kind of led me into, in January of 2020, I interned for NASA, and then that following summer, I interned for APL, the Applied Physics Laboratory, where I now work. So yeah, pretty linear career path, I'd say, but yeah, that's how it happened.
Awesome. All right, Kenzie, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about how your educational pathway?
Hi, so my name's Kenzie. I live in Houston. I work for Zachary Construction as a field engineer. So that's like half field, half office. So a lot of the stuff that I learned in school was project management based, as well as kind of the software program side. Education, I went to A&M, started out with civil engineering, and I always wanted to build roads. And engineering was a lot of what they were talking about in those classes was the design side, and I didn't really have a passion for that. So I chose to go the construction engineering construction science route, and kind of learn more of how the work is built from the ground, and did a couple of internships with that. And so now I build roads, and it's awesome.
Yay, that's awesome. All right, so that kind of leads into our next question. It's kind of like, what is your current job like? What does your job look like? Because what our job titles are and what we actually do can be two very different things. Or like if you're working in academia, you have your academic side of your job, but then you also have your research side of your job. So that consists of very two things. So Kenzie, since you were just talking about that you help build roads, what does that look like versus what you expected in school?
In school, I don't know what I was expecting. I kind of went into it pretty open-minded. I wanted to build roads. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anyone that did it. I knew it didn't just like show up one day. You see equipment on the side of the road, you see crews working. I kind of went into it really open-minded. Now, I know there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of planning that takes place. So like I'm on a TxDOT job, which is the Texas DOT, and the amount of effort put in by different companies before the project's even like awarded, and they may not even get the job. And there's just a lot of individuals involved. And then once the project is awarded, and like the company that I work for, the project that I'm on, we have 5 crews working on the project. And so I manage the people, the equipment, and it's not just me. I work with a team of, there's 6 of us in our area office that on a daily basis manage the crews, equipment, their hours, making sure that they get paid, as well as they have all the resources and material they need. And kind of, I don't know, but yeah, there's just a lot to it.
Awesome. All right. So Chelsea, kind of what does your research look like?
Yeah, so with my research, obviously I spend a lot of time in the lab, but I never really thought about how much it would involve me actually teaching. So I'm working as a graduate teaching assistant to help pay for school, but at the same time, we have a lot of undergrads doing research in our lab, which is really good because it's exposing them to fields that they never really thought about pursuing. And we have a few who originally were on the track to do med school, but by actually being in the lab and doing research, we've kind of persuaded them to see that you can do more with a biology degree than just become an MD. Like there's the heroes behind the scene that are actually doing the research, coming up with like cutting edge technology. And it like kind of brings out the leadership and team player role in you. You need to know how to work with people. Every now and then you're going to have some people in the team that don't get along, and you just need to really find a way to work in difficult environments. And yeah, I never really thought about how much research would actually bring up leadership roles in you. So that was interesting.
That's awesome. All right. So Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about how you balance your roles or what that looks like for you?
Oh, absolutely. So I think I'm biased here, but I have the best job in the world. So being a professor is what I always wanted to do, and now it is what I do. And essentially, at its core, being an academic, being a professor at a university, means that my job any given day involves 3 major things: teaching, research, and service. Now, what do those look like? Well, everybody knows what teaching looks like. That's the front face of a university. All of you were in university, and you see what that looks like all the time. So I used to do a lot of that. I'm department head now, so I haven't taught a class since December and won't teach another one until August. But when I get to, I love to teach. Research, of course, we kind of know what that looks like. That's one of the things that I think I have been the most prolific in my career. So I've gotten to do a lot of research. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a mathematical psychologist. So I work in a fairly niche area, which means a lot of the problems that I'm working on don't have a lot of people attacking them, which means it's fairly easy for me to get things published if I do decent work. So I've had a lot of luck with that, I think. But I've also gotten to improve my teaching and improve how people learn stuff related to my discipline, specifically statistics. And as a result, I've gotten 2 books published, and one just came out a couple of weeks ago. I would show you a copy, but I don't have any in my office because I sold out when we had my book signing. So that was cool. The service side is interesting because that's like professional organizations. Like right now, I'm president of the Southwestern Psychological Association. So every week I've got a meeting or 2 that deals with something like that. Or I also hold a position in the Mathematical Association of America. And so there's just lots of different things that take up a given day. But there's no such thing as coming in and doing a set routine every day in my job. It's all different. And I've got over in the corner of my screen, I've got texts firing about crap that I've got to deal with in the morning as a department head. And so I'm trying to ignore that while I talk to all of you. That's my fun for the day. So definitely lots of, again, best job ever.
That's awesome. So Dean, do you want to talk a little bit about your job?
Absolutely. So similar to Tom, my days are different every single day. It's one thing I absolutely love about engineering. No day's the same. And I think the easiest way to describe what I do at work is to give an example to everyone. So essentially, a client will come to us as a design engineering firm and say, so for example, NCTC would come and say, hey, I want to build a new math building. Can you help us with that? So we would, there's a lot of things that entails, right? So you need your civil engineers to get the roads there, to get utilities to that building. You need architects to actually design the building and the rooms that are going to be inside it. You need mechanical engineers like myself to design all the HVAC to make sure everyone stays nice and cool inside. You need electrical engineers to get power to all the units, to any electrical outlets in the building, things of that nature. You need a plumbing engineer, which usually entails a mechanical engineer as well. So everyone can have water and natural gas or anything that's needed inside the building. And you also need structural engineers. You don't want the building to fall down, right? So I get to work with all types of amazing people in this job to make projects similar to that come to fruition. So that's a little bit about what I do.
That's awesome. All right, so Chuck, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do with your research?
Yeah, sure. But before I mention some of the stuff about my research, I do want to just echo something that Chelsea was talking about when you're doing research, when you're in science, like you will realize that you do lots of activities other than just pipetting or mixing stuff. Like you learn leadership skills, you mentor people. I mean, and really what you're doing is taking in information and data and making, data-driven decisions. And that's useful no matter what career path you choose. So there's a lot to be gained from experiencing research or just anything science related in general. But at MD Anderson, it's a pretty big institution, but I specifically work within a little kind of small company type group known as Traction. And we specifically focus on, developing and testing out therapeutics for cancers that don't respond to standard of care treatments. Basically, the hospital will send us biopsies from patients that aren't responding. We study their molecular profiles, figure out what's wrong with them, and test different drugs. And my role is primarily been dedicated to developing imaging techniques that will assist in evaluating cell death within tumors in real time. And so about 80% of my time is in the lab, and maybe 20% or so is like meeting with pharmaceutical companies, collaborators, or whatever, and sharing data and stuff. But that's my role.
Super cool. All right, so Logan, you're on a different end of the spectrum. What does your job look like?
Yeah, over here it's still, it's pretty fast paced. A lot of things happening. To give you an example as well, a couple months after I started, we decided that we were going to build a GUI for one of our tools, one of our internal tools, in the form of a web interface. And I got assigned to this group, and I never, ever, touched web design at all. They're like, yep, we need to build this. We're building in React, learn it, and off you go. And, that's pretty much what you do. Whatever you need to do to get the job done, you learn it, and then go do it. The other project I'm on right now, dealing closer with what I described earlier, like protecting our critical infrastructure. A lot of that has to do with PLCs, and these little, it stands for Programmable Logic Controller. There's little devices that, control like maybe a water pump, and it'll like take in temperature data and all of that stuff. We were, for our project, we had to reverse engineer the network protocol that it used to communicate with computers and everything like that. So that's super interesting work that not a lot of places are doing right now. More wider at APL, it's a big government contractor. So what'll happen is they'll have internal rounds of funding for if you have a project idea, they'll give you some money to go and make a prototype. And then after that initial rapid development stage, you will go and pitch it to a sponsor, which is usually a government agency or maybe a military, some side of the military. So there's lots and lots of cool projects happening at the lab, and you have a lot of freedom in navigating those projects and choosing which ones you want to go to. So and that's what I'm doing right now, is just day to day working on my projects. That's 90% of what I do, and then also out shopping for some more. So
super cool. Yeah, I asked because we have a lot of cybersecurity majors, and we have some that may never decide to go past the networking side of cybersecurity, but then we have a whole lot of them that want to do, because the 2-year degree is networking side, and then they want to go on and do more of the programming side to get their bachelor's, which I think is super interesting. And I know a lot of them, their biggest question goes, we're doing all this stuff in class, but what does my job actually look like? Like, what would I be doing once I get out of here?
Yeah, it's a lot of just real hard technical work, day in, day out. You're just going to be working on your project mainly, unless you're a project manager or something like that, at least at my current place of work. Yeah. But I'm sure we have some more of that for the Q&A section.
Yeah, sounds super interesting. All right. Did I get everyone, or did I leave someone out? I think I got everyone. Okay, so the next thing is, as I said, our students are at the community college level. What should students be proactively doing right now, other than just their coursework, to get experience and prepare for a STEM career, or a career in STEM? So things like volunteering, internships, research experiences, things like that. Or, some of you guys who are in the more technical fields, is there something else that you guys did that you think helped prepared you for your career? And Chelsea, we'll start with you.
I definitely think doing research as an undergrad would be a really helpful experience. Especially, it's going to show you parts of the science field that you never would have thought of really pursuing. And not only does it look good on a CV, but it gives you really important skills that are going to really help you in advancing in your career. So if they can, just look out for research positions in your undergrad, and don't feel like you need to stick to one lab. Try it out for a semester, see if that type of research is interesting you. Maybe you do it for a semester and realize that biology isn't what interests you and you switch to chemistry. Or there's so many opportunities in research, and just take your time and see what interests you.
Yeah, absolutely. I will step in and say, as an advisor, there's not a whole lot of opportunities for research at this level, but as soon as you guys transfer, definitely start looking into that immediately. Like, ask your faculty members, or your advisor or your department chair, whoever you're going to be working with within your department. Because I know I had to do some research projects myself, and some of my best memories from undergrad. So it's definitely, I will step out in front of that and say, because I know I have students ask us all the time about internships or research things, and I'm like, during your first 2 years at college, that's not something that you're really going to expect to do, and that's pretty normal for any student at any college. Is your first 2 years, you're not that heavy into that, but it's definitely something to keep in mind and to know that you need to be looking for those opportunities. All right, Tom?
Yeah, so I'll echo what Chelsea said, and certainly, research is an obvious experience for all undergraduate students. But as you mentioned, it is hard to get those specific research experiences at your 2-year college. But there's a couple of ways that your 2-year students can get that experience early. One is to search out what are called REUs, or research experience for undergraduate programs. And so all you got to do is Google REU for students or something like that, and you'll find a list of probably from the NSF, the National Science Foundation, who's the primary funder of these things. And a lot of those REUs are specifically targeted at bringing two-year college students into research labs at various larger universities for the summer. So that's a great way, absolute great way to get involved early and get to take a really nice paid summer internship. Another possibility for students, say at NCTC or similar places, is most professional organizations really have arms which cater toward two-year college students. So I'll give you two concrete examples. The two organizations that I'm active in, the Southwestern Psychological Association, as well as the Mathematical Association of America. So Southwestern Psychological Association, we have lots of faculty who teach psychology courses who bring students from their two-year colleges to the conference every year. And there they get to meet people who are at four-year institutions, graduate institutions, research institutions, et cetera. Sometimes they even get to do research themselves, depending on whether there's any active research going on. I know that the MAA, the Mathematical Association of America, also does things like this at their regional meetings. In fact, there's an organization called AMATIC, which is the American Mathematical Association for two-year colleges, I think. I'm not a member, so I don't remember. But there are multiple paths that students can take, even if it's not specific to their own college. I think probably the best way to get to know these things is never be afraid to ask any and all of their professors in their fields that they're interested in. And I bet one of those folks will have a path for you.
Sorry, guys. For whatever reason, it lost the audio in my ears, and then it was coming out of random places on my computer. It likes to pick and choose what it wants to do. Anyway, yes, I think that's very, very good. And I wasn't aware that there was a 2-year organization for math. That's amazing. Need to look at that up. Okay, so Dean, we'll go with you next.
All right, very good. So I think the best advice I can give is to get as much work experience as you possibly can, and also try to get involved at your college. You know, obviously internships look great, and you should strive to get as many as you can, especially in a field such as engineering before you graduate. But you know, a lot of times that's not possible. But any experience is good experience. You know, my first few years of college I spent doing landscaping and was actually a bellman at WinStar, if you could believe that. But at the end of the day, employers want to hire candidates with a good work ethic and someone that they would enjoy working with. So those are the biggest things.
All right, Chuck.
I mean, I really don't think I can add much to what Chelsea, Tom, and Dean said. I mean, they hit the nail on the head. I think really just it's make the effort, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. Like generally, people want to help you, especially like younger people who are excited about what they're doing. Like, don't be afraid to reach out, whether it's an internship, research, or even if you just know somebody who has a job kind of like what you might want to do. See if you could just shadow them in some capacity. You might even find out that that's not what you want to do if you've been able to kind of see it in real time. So just, don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Awesome. Thank you. Logan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would also echo everything that everyone has said here. Being very recently, a college student, I do have some comments as well. And the first part of that is, you really do want to have something besides your classwork on your resume. The end all be all, of course, being an internship. But in my field, we're blessed that we can, even without an internship, have some outside of the classroom experience. My sophomore into junior college or summer, I didn't get an internship, and so I just took that time instead, and I developed an Android app that I posted on GitHub and put it on my resume. And employers really like to see stuff like that. more cybersecurity oriented, there's really great resources out there. Like I already mentioned, Hack the Box is great. Over the Wire is another great resource. And you capture the flags for just general software engineering. There's a ton of hackathons that you can do, and if you win one of those, that also looks great on a resume. Whenever you get to applying, I would suggest applying to as many job applications as possible. I think I'd apply to like 80 to 100 jobs every time I was trying to get an internship or a job. I would just do like 5 a day for a couple of weeks. It's usually pretty good. And one last thing, I would kind of like load up a practice interview or two. You really want to get out those jitters for an interview that you really want to nail. And practice, and that always helps.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, especially for anything in the IT fields, there's an infinite amount of places to get extra experience. And so, yeah, that's one of those things. Don't ever be afraid to like reach out to one of us or your instructors. Our instructors here at NCTC, they do way more than just teach at NCTC. A lot of them still work in the industry. So it's something that if you as a student here at NCTC want to know more about, definitely be asking your instructors, hey, is there anything else I can do? Because I think reflecting what several have said already, a big part of being able to get these experiences before you graduate is not being afraid to reach out, not be afraid to ask. So that's my 2 cents on that side. Aaron or Kenzie, do you guys have anything to add?
So I've got kind of two. Learn to write. There are a lot of people who get degrees in STEM who do not learn how to write effectively. Technical writing is a huge part of a lot of STEM degrees. I worked my way through college. I didn't have an opportunity to do internships, but as a part of a job that I had in an office, I got to help write their OSHA compliance safety manual. That being on my resume is part of what got me my first interview at Lockheed. You do not find a lot of new college grads with technical writing experience for government compliance. It was huge. At the time, I had no idea that was going to be a game changer for me. So look for those opportunities, even in a job that you have that isn't an internship. The other suggestion I generally give people is get in front of people. It's one thing to apply for jobs, especially online. It is another thing completely if you have the opportunity to go to a job fair or run into somebody at Engineers Week and make an actual connection. And make sure that when you do that you're coming prepared. Not just I'm looking for a job. Why do you have an interest in this particular field, in this particular employer? Because that makes a huge difference, and it means that someone will remember you more than just an application.
Absolutely. And then Kenzie, do you have anything to add?
Not really. School is not the most important thing, like everyone else is saying, when it comes to applications. School's important, but getting the experience and trying out different things in the field that you may be interested in, whether it's on like a consultant side or for the engineering construction side, the design side, field side, there's just different options. And you may think you want to be in one place, but internships are a good trial, and just taking advantage of those while they're there.
Absolutely. All right. So now the fun questions. What is your favorite part about your career field or what you do? So think of one thing that you enjoy the most about what you get to do. All right. So Chelsea, we'll start with you.
I really found that I have a love for teaching, training undergrads in lab, as well as just like teaching them in class. I didn't realize how much I actually enjoyed teaching, but that's been one of my favorite aspects, as well as learning to use new equipment. In my lab, most of the equipment we use is older than me, so every now and then when we get something that's like updated, like a cordless pipette age. You get like really excited for like tiny little advancements. So that's always fun.
That's awesome. All right, so Tom.
Well, given what Aaron just said a little while ago, it's perfect that I'll say this. The favorite part of my job is writing. So I write for my job. I write memos every day. I write emails to my faculty. I write papers and books. I write things for students. I love to write, and I love to do it creatively. If you think it's just dry, technical, stereotypical writing, I don't like doing that. I like writing entertainment like. So yeah, that's the favorite part of my job.
I love that because you won't hear a whole lot of STEM majors say that. So that's definitely a plus side. All right, so Dean.
Yeah, I kind of talked about this earlier, but the best part, without question, for me is that every day is different. And one day as a mechanical engineer, you'll be designing an office space to help ventilate an office space. The next, I'll be helping design a central plant of chillers and boilers, or potentially doing plumbing upgrades in there. Even paint booths and things of that nature, and ventilating those. So every day is different. I also really enjoy the clients we get to work with, and the people I get to work with here internally as well. So.
Awesome. Hey, Chuck.
I think I like most like how collaborative like the kind of the company I work at is. I kind of said I focus specifically on one thing, but really we have tons of projects that our group works on, and everything's super integrated. You have the opportunity to kind of get your hands on lots of stuff. No one is an expert in everything. You know your stuff, but everyone is very helpful. Really putting minds together with other people, solving problems. It's very team oriented, and team science is more fun, I guess, than I expected, and it fills that void that being too old to play sports left.
All right, Logan.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Dean, just in the fact that it's a fast-paced work. You learn something new every day. You're learning a lot of very impactful technologies, and that's really rewarding. Also, it's cool to know that you could hack your neighbor's Wi-Fi if you really needed to.
All right, Aaron.
I love solving problems. That's why I got into STEM. It's why I was a math major. And what I do now is really sticky problems. So I get a lot of calls that are I don't know where to start. And I love going through the who, what, where, when, why, where are you trying to get to? I put my systems engineer hat on and say, if you don't know the answer to one or two of these questions, you're not ready to start. What is the goal you're trying to achieve? What is the problem you're trying to solve? That's step one. So for me, that's the fun part. Every day is different. I get to do a mix of work collaboratively and work alone. I work with some of the coolest tech in the world, with some of the smartest people in the world. That is super cool, but it's the throw me that sticky problem and let me dig into it. That is my happy place.
I feel that. All right, so Kenzie.
Oh, I completely agree with Aaron. Problem solving, or what we like to call innovation, is coming up with a way to essentially, for my case, build the road or build a certain thing that's more cost efficient, meets the schedule if we're behind schedule, or even it can give us the advantage of getting ahead, as well as doing something safe. For us, safety is most important. So if we can find a safer way, engineer out the problem, that's just doing that is so exciting. When you can do, like, find a solution, it makes everything great.
That's amazing. I would say the same thing applies in advising too, because people wonder, like, why do you do what you do with your degree? And the thing of it is that every day is a new day. I never know what's going to happen within a day. I show up to work and I'm like, here's my schedule, but I don't know what's going to happen with each student I meet with, or even just all my individual duties. And so it's one of those things that being able to creatively think about a problem and find a solution. I do a lot of data analysis. I do a lot of scheduling and things like that, which you were like, okay, yeah, you're an advisor, you're going to help people with their schedules. But it's like not just scheduling student schedules who also have a lot of different situations going. So you're trying to, they tell you their schedule and you're like, okay, let's try to figure out how to make this work. But the same thing happens in my job from day to day is that, you know, we constantly have staff influxes and things like that. And I have to look at the schedule and I'm like, okay, so how can we change this up to have coverage, but then not just add hours to people's schedules everywhere? Or, you know, how can I work with faculty better to kind of make the workload easier for both of us and things like that. So I understand that from the standpoint of views because I love that type of problem solving. And that's not something I ever expected to encounter working in education and especially on the advising and staff end of education. Because I've also been an instructor. And so on the instructor side, I actually didn't do as much of the problem solving kind of thing because you're like, this is the class you're going to teach. This is the information that you have to go over. And yes, you kind of have to get creative in how to teach that and how to get a point across to students, especially if they're struggling, but it's still the same information. So I actually kind of enjoy this side of it more. Shannon is our other advisor who is on, and she works with all of our IT majors, and I'm sure she can attest to the same thing. Is you don't realize just how much of that problem solving skills this side of the house takes.
We couldn't do it without you, Leanne.
But yeah, it takes a team, and no matter what the job. But I think most of us are driven towards our fields of study because of getting to do that. It's fun. Okay, so I'm trying to see if we've gotten any Q&A on Facebook Live. I do not see any. If you are on Facebook Live and you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I will ask our panel. And then in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and let them kind of do their ending statement. So basically, that's if you had a single piece of advice to give to STEM students, what would it be? And we'll start with Chelsea.
Ooh, one piece of advice is sometimes not everything is going to happen as planned, but it's okay. And if you just like, don't give up, just keep trying. If you apply for a job and you don't get the job, apply to another job. If you don't get into the school that you want, there's other schools to get into. I know it can be a little disheartening when you don't always get what you want, but there's so many opportunities, and especially in North Texas, just keep trying and believe in yourself.
Thank you. Right, Tom?
Oh, this is hard because I'm always so full of advice for everyone who asks. But if I had to pare it down to a somewhat cohesive statement, I would say do as well everywhere that you can so that you are prepared for every opportunity that comes your way, because you never know which one's going to be the one that's going to take you to your career. And the little sub piece of advice is get out of the lab every once in a while and go for a run. You'll be surprised at how much it will clear your mind.
Absolutely. All right, Dean?
Man, it's really hard to narrow it down to one piece of advice. But my piece of advice is a very simple concept for everyone, but I think it can lead to a very rewarding future in really any STEM career path that you choose. And that concept is to strive to become the best version of yourself every day, whether it's intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, or physically. You know, the idea of becoming the best version of yourself will echo throughout your life. You'll become a better student, colleague, friend, and professional because of it.
All right. So we do have some questions coming in. So to the former NCTC students, did you know what you were going to major in, or did while you were here, or did someone or something at NCTC influence your decision?
Is that for any specific person or just, I guess? Yeah, I can
Yeah,
go
you
ahead
can
and
go for it.
I can answer. I went into NCTC expecting to do probably biology afterwards, and I did pursue biology after NCTC, but that ultimately changed to chemistry. So I didn't know, and it didn't matter. But yeah, that was mine.
Yeah, and then for biology, did you have an idea what you were wanting to do with that initially? Did
Well,
that
yeah,
change?
well, I was thinking like MD and kind of wanted to go to medical school, but then kind of like I was saying earlier, became more interested in kind of at the molecular level, and that drove me towards chemistry.
Yeah. And then Dean, what about you?
To be honest, I always wanted to go to NCTC and play baseball growing up. So I got exactly what I wanted, and it was an amazing start. I didn't know exactly that I wanted to go into engineering at NCTC, but it didn't really matter. That gave me a really good baseline to go in whichever field I really wanted from there. So I knew that I enjoyed math and that I really wanted to challenge myself in a career that was challenging and one that I could incorporate problem solving every day. So I'm really glad I chose engineering because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then none of the rest of you went to NCTC, did you? No. Okay. All right. And then another question we have is, have any of you had the opportunity to travel with your job? And if so, what is the most awesome place?
Leanne, I've got to jump in here. So I get to travel, well, not for the last couple of years, but before that and now starting again, I've gotten to travel so many great places. I've been to every Canadian province. Probably the best place, though, as part of my job, cost me nothing except for a ticket to get my wife there with me, was to go to Amsterdam for a week and work at the University of Amsterdam. That was a cool trip.
That's amazing. Anyone else?
So I'm going to step up. My company actually sent us, there was 20 of us to Uganda to build footbridges. It was awesome. It was 2 weeks over there and great time.
Super cool. Anyone else?
So early in my career, I got to spend a week in the United Kingdom with a whole group of American and UK pilots looking at crunching lots of numbers about our products and their products and how we can make things better. It was a blast. It is always cool to get to see the user community for the products that you work on and get their feedback because it helps you do better things for them and produce better things from them.
Awesome. So Chuck, Logan, or Chelsea, have you guys got to travel at all?
Well, COVID has that kind of on lockdown for us. Once COVID is in the clear, we do travel to conferences every year, and we have collaborators around the world, some in Germany, and I kind of am looking forward to that. But who knows when that's going to be possible.
That's fair.
Yeah, Leanne, I'll step in. So one of the clients I have the privilege to serve as Lockheed Martin, so I was actually able to travel to the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico out there for one of a paint booth little study that we had going. So that was a really cool experience. But it was confidential, so I can't tell you anything.
Right. But that's super fun. That's where I am from, is from Alamogordo, New Mexico. And the reason why is because my grandfather was an electrical engineer that worked out there on the base. So Lord knows what all he actually worked on when he was there. All right, awesome. So we're going to go back to your one piece of advice. I think, Chuck, you're next.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, everyone has had great advice. I think like just to kind of condense it down to one statement, I would say maybe to just make sure you fail forward. There will always be challenges, and you will not always be successful. But if you view failure as like data points to learn from, you may learn to be successful faster. So don't be pessimistic. Take your failures with a grain of salt, and take time to think about them. just like take time to think about your successes, but make sure you capitalize on things that don't work so you can learn to correct them moving forward.
I think you're on mute again, Leanne.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, Logan, you're next.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just say, have fun with it. It doesn't have to be your favorite pastime or anything, but if you like what you do for work, then, you're going to be happier throughout your day. You're going to be working most of your time. That, and you'll meet more people that help you in, your academic career and your working career.
Absolutely. Aaron?
Learn how to seek out, accept, and use constructive criticism as a positive. For the kids that I mentor, I always tell them it is really hard to give good constructive criticism. It's really, really hard to accept it too. But if you can learn to see it as the person who is giving you that feedback wants to see you succeed, believes you have the potential to get better, and is willing and able to take the time to invest in you to help you succeed, it'll help you to not get defensive when somebody tells you that what you've done isn't perfect, right? So seek out those learning opportunities and invest in the people who give you good feedback.
Awesome. That's a really good piece of advice. All right, Kenzie?
Don't be afraid to get dirty. That's not just physical, but a lot of situations you get put in, like volunteer for the ones that may not be the most comfortable. You learn a lot in the toughest situations. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much for volunteering to be on this. I wasn't sure who all we were going to get, and we've talked about a lot about not being afraid to ask and get out there. So for me, I am an introvert by nature. You guys wouldn't notice. But it was a lot of me just putting it out there, like, hey, faculty, who do you know? I put out a Facebook post. It's just, you have to get creative. And so it's going to be the same way when you're looking for jobs or contacts or opportunities. So that would be my biggest advice. But I do appreciate you guys all for taking the time to join us this evening, and thank you for sharing. I'm really excited for this. Again, this is being recorded and it will be on So not only can you rewatch it on Facebook, we'll also have it on YouTube as well, if anyone wants that link. If you're any of my STEM students, I will be sharing that in our Canvas group as well. All right. Well, again, thank you so much, and we're going to leave it at that. So bye, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.